evening, I'm Ben Kitili at the KTN News Center here in the Kenyan capital, Nairobi. It is the 3rd day of May 2016. This is the World Press Freedom Day this year, 2016. KTN Prime begins now. The site of the collapsed Huruma building was today turned into a combat zone as police engaged CORD supporters who had accompanied CORD leaders Raila Odinga, Kalonzo Musyoka and Moses Wetangula. Several people were injured in the chaos. This came on the 5th day of the ongoing rescue operations, where 23 people have already been confirmed dead with 95 others still missing. And as KTN's Moremi Mwangi now reports, 2 brothers who owned the building and 3 county officials have been arraigned in court over the tragedy.
Wanasema ajali haikingiki, lakini kuna ajali zingine ambazo zimepangwa. Zingine zimepangwa kwa sababu ya ufisadi. Na kama mtu anajenga nyumba kwa njia ya haraka bila kufuata taratibu na mpango ambayo imewekwa, hiyo kama mtu ambaye anapanga kuua watu. Manake wewe ambaye unaingia ndani ya nyumba huna habari na kwamba jamaa alikata kona hapa na pale bila kufuata taratibu ambayo imewekwa.
A child. Now, before we go to that story, let's take you to our big question tonight, and we are basing it on what has been happening concerning that building that collapsed on Friday night in Huruma here in Nairobi. That is the basis of our big question discussion. Remember, today the CORD leaders did visit that scene, and there was that chaos that we have just shown you. And on our big question tonight, we are asking you, we are asking you to comment on the Huruma chaos during the Coalition for Reforms and Democracy CORD's visit to Huruma. Send your comments to the number 22155 and also on Twitter at Ben_Kitili, at KTN News and at KTN Kenya. Shall be sampling them during this live newscast. Staying in Huruma now, a child almost 7 months old was rescued alive at 4 a.m. from the debris of the building that collapsed in Huruma, Nairobi. The child, identified as Dilarin Saisi Wasike, the Red Cross says had been buried for about 80 hours and was found in a bucket wrapped in a blanket. KTN's Dorcas Wangira has the details.
Dilarin Saisi Wasike, almost 7 months old, feeds serenely, seemingly oblivious to the tragedy that brought her here. She was rescued alive Tuesday 4 a.m. from the debris of the Huruma building that collapsed Friday. She, the Red Cross says, had been buried for about 80 hours and was found in a bucket wrapped in a blanket. She appeared dehydrated and with no visible physical injuries. Residents at the site at the time say she was not crying and only got unsettled after she was rescued. At 6 a.m., she began to receive treatment at the Kenyatta National Hospital.
By physical observation, she was stable. And we commenced medical assessment and of course to boost hydration level and the nutritionist and medical team of course carrying out the assessment to determine a health condition.
The rescue has been described as a miracle. The human body, doctors say, can go only for 3 days without water and 3 weeks without food. Delarine had stretched past the 72-hour average limit, and in survival that long, where many, more than 20, have perished, and one more body was retrieved from the rubble, is said to be a miracle. A similar incident was reported this year, 15th of April, of an 8-month-old baby rescued from a flattened house with no visible injuries after an earthquake in Japan. Later in the day, a man identified as Ralson Saisi Wasike claimed to be the infant's father and was reunited with her.
Wanaume lazima uvumilie. Nisingevumilia huenda hii ingepatikana. Ama ingepatikana kama mimi mwenyewe siko. At the moment nilifika nikaita tu mama. Mtoto aliitika na akabeba mkono. Mpaka madaktari wenye walikuwa pale, they didn't believe kama huyu mtoto akona miezi 6 na amejua babake.
The National Disaster Management Committee is appealing to those with missing relatives to be patient as the search and rescue operations continue. For many, hope is fast fading on finding the more than 90 still unaccounted for. Delarine, at last, a symbol of survival from a place of death.
Miracle of Delarine Saisi Wasike, their beautiful story after 80 hours buried under the debris. Let's take a look at a few other incidents where little babies have seemed to be the only survivors in devastating a situation. Let's start with March 15th, 2011, following that earthquake and tsunami, where after hours of search, the Japanese self-defense forces had already given up after pulling more than 2,000 bodies who had been washed to the shoreline. When they heard cries, at first they did not believe what they had heard until they went and lifted slates and mud and found a 4-month-old baby who had survived the drowning and being crushed by falling trees and debris and all that. And then on September 6, 2012, in Aleppo, one of the bloodiest cities in the Syrian war, one afternoon a helicopter pummeled a 3-bedroom apartment building and killed all members of that particular family except for 1-year-old boy called Hassan, who the rescue operators searched using their hands until they found him unscathed, still wrapped and cradled under in his mom's lifeless arms. And in April 30th, 2015, this is during the 7.8 magnitude Nepalese earthquake where many people lost their lives. And again, 2 children who survived this ordeal and changed the narrative of that particular disaster in Nepal. One was 10 years old and the brother was 5 months old. The 10-year-old was called Sonia and was found after 2 hours of rescue operation, but the 5-month-old Sonis was found after 22 hours buried under the debris, found again unscathed apart from a small bruise in his thigh. That picture of the rescuers lifting him into the air was the picture of that disaster. Now, and of course, on March 10th, 2016, right here in Kenya, 4-year-old Angela Chassis survived a road accident when his family and other members who had come to Nairobi for the Beyond Zero campaign marathon that has been spearheaded by the First Lady Margaret Kenyatta. On their way back to Kapenguria, they had a road accident where 7 people, including Angela's parents, perished in that road accident, but she was found well and okay. So it is just some incidents where children, small children, have seemed to be the only survivors. And this latest story here in Huruma of baby Delarine Saisi Wasike, found after 80 hours, still well, dehydrated, but okay. A beautiful story that, of course, will give heart to the rescuers in this disaster. Now, moving on, the National Burial Committee has released more details about the funeral plans For former First Lady Mama Lucy Kibaki, a public requiem mass will be held in her honor tomorrow, Wednesday the 4th of May, at the Consolata Shrine here in Nairobi. Huruma Road will remain partially closed for traffic from 7:30 in the morning to 2 p.m. during the service. She will be laid to rest on Saturday the 7th of May in Othaya, Nyeri County. An interdenominational service will be held at the Othaya approved school grounds, and after that only the family and a few invited guests will go to the final resting place of Mama Lucy at the family's home in Othaya.
There will be a requiem mass tomorrow on Wednesday 4th of May at the Consolata Shrine in Westlands. Mass will begin at 9:30 and this mass is open to the public. Members of the public are advised to be seated by 9 a.m. Members of the public who wish to stand by the roadside as the convoy meanders through the road to pay their last respect are welcome to do so.
Kenyan journalists today joined others from the rest of the world in celebrating the World Press Freedom Day. Media practitioners engaged in discourse to reflect on the gains and challenges that the industry still faces. Celebrations in Kenya were spearheaded by the Media Council of Kenya, which is tonight giving awards to journalists for exemplary performance in their various categories. Timothy Otieno, who is one.
It has been tough for the media in the law courts. We appeal to the judiciary today to end our long wait by giving a decision on our petitions challenging sections, the constitutionality of sections of the Kenya Information and Communications Act 2013 and the Media Act of 2013. We have waited long enough. Give us justice.
When we talk about the role of journalism, we must remind ourselves that errant journalists have sometimes contributed to the breakdown of societies. Who among us will remember, will forget what happened in Rwanda? Who among us will remember that certain errant journalists were at the very heart of promoting ethnic animosity? When you live in a continent such as that, your role is a lot more important, even as we exercise the freedom that we so much cherish.
Let's go back to our top story. In the site of the collapsed Huruma building was turned into a combat zone as police engaged CORD supporters who had accompanied CORD leaders Raila Odinga, Kalonzo Musyoka and Moses Wetangula to the scene. Several people were injured in the chaos. This came on the 5th day of the ongoing rescue operations, where 23 have already been confirmed dead, with 95 others still not accounted for. The KTN's Moremi Mwangi was there, now reports 2 brothers who owned that particular building and 3 county officials have been arraigned in court over the tragedy.
It all started as a triumphant entry of the top CORD brigade to Huruma, where 23 people have already been confirmed dead following the collapse of a residential building. But as soon as CORD leader Raila Odinga and co-principals Kalonzo Musyoka and Moses Wetangula made their way to the collapse site, the running battles started, a confrontation that left several people injured. But the face-off between the security personnel and the agitated CORD supporters was not to end anytime soon, as the CORD leaders toured the tragedy site, The confrontation continued on the streets and went on even as the CORD leaders made their way to Starehe CDF Social Hall, where the rescued victims are camping.
Fuko 50 ya unga. Sawa baba. Alafu tumeleta crate 30 ya maji. Sawa baba. Na bado 5 blanketi.
Tunajali maslahi ya mwananchi wa kawaida. Tunajali maslahi ya mtu mdogo, kwa sababu tunajua mdogo mkubwa sisi tuko sawa mbele ya Mwenyezi Mungu.
Back at the tragedy site, the hunt for more survivors continued. The rescue team making little headway across the huge mountain of debris, 3/4 of which is still inaccessible. The section of the rubble bordering the river and that on the back of the collapsed building still remains inaccessible for the rescue workers, and there are growing fears that a majority of the missing persons may still be trapped here.
There are buildings nearly all over. We have requested a team from the county government. They are working on that. They'll give us a feedback. They have gone to request the families to realize that we need an entry route from the other side. So they have been requested to allow access.
We continue to appeal for members of public to support these people through donations. We have received a good amount, but not enough, as you know. We have children who need diapers, who need warm clothing, who need better beddings. I continue to make this appeal.
Now, part of the ongoing rescue efforts here, but as you can see behind me, quite a lot still waiting to be done. But miraculously, a short distance from the excavator is where a young baby was recovered a few minutes past 4 a.m. today. Meanwhile, 2 owners of the collapsed Huruma building and 3 government officials have been arraigned in court to face charges of murder and manslaughter. The suspects, however, did not plead to the charges. The court will make a ruling on whether to release them on bond on Wednesday. Muremi Mwangi, KTN News in Nairobi.
The drama from Huruma is the basis of a big question tonight. From those pictures, we're asking, what are your comments on those pictures following the visit of the CORD leaders to the area? Very quickly, Owino Jeremy on Twitter says, government is overusing power to prevent fellow Kenyans from visiting Huruma. This is not fair. Wando Onias on Twitter says, that was an opportunistic move which went south. Shady move. Kisaboli Caleb says, someone needs to take responsibility of the tragedy. Corruption will bring this country down. And Felix Akoko asks, the question is, why must the police tear gas CORD supporters? Or were they any threats? And Eric S. Monene says, it shows opposition has no other option but to let it go. Keep those SMSs and tweets coming. You're watching KTN Prime. Many thanks for staying with us. We'll take a quick commercial break. Don't go foul. We'll be back with more. Welcome back to KTN Prime. Many thanks for staying with us. And as we have reported today, Kenyan journalists joined their colleagues in the rest of the world in celebrating the World Press Freedom Day. Let's now join KTN's Timothy Otieno, who is one of the many from the Standard Group who have been nominated for awards. Tim, bring us up to date on what's going on right now. Have we started sweeping those awards yet?
Then not quite yet, but of course a colorful event here. The speech is actually going on. Whoever's in the podium right now is Nancy Puka, who is one of the judges and the panel at the Media Council of Kenya, who will be giving out the awards later on tonight. Then this is a culmination of events that started at 9 a.m. in the morning here at the Intercontinental Hotel. Of course, earlier on there were discussions discussing the challenges affecting the Kenyan media industry and how to overcome these challenges. Right now it's time to relax and unwind as the best of the best in the Kenyan media industry are set to be awarded this evening in the 5th Annual Journalism Excellence Awards. Of course, the entries this year going above and beyond the expectation. Of course, the Media Council said over 1,000 entries were received by the Council for this year's awards. Out of the 1,000, this room behind me is filled with 95 of the finalists who were shortlisted to receive awards from 10 various categories. Among them, of course, our very own team here at the KTN News team, as well as the Standard newspaper, all in all of about 20 nominations. And of course, we are hopeful and keeping our fingers crossed that our journalists will scoop most of these awards. Of course, among those nominated include Francis Mtalaki, as well as Mashirima Kapombe, Agnes Penda, Zubeida Kome, Victor Ogale, Francis Omtoma, Duncan Kaemba, many journalists from the KTN News. So we are hoping that we'll scoop most of the awards. The awards have not yet begun being issued. Keynote addresses, among them will be an address from the outgoing Chief Justice William Tuka, who is going to be addressing the journalists here before the awards can be given out, Ben. So it's a night that we hope the Standard Group will shine once again, as it always does in these awards, which is running in its 5th year, Ben.
Thank you, Timothy. Looking very good there. That win deserves to win an award. All the best tonight. Switch gears to matters politics, and 3 members of parliament from the Wiper Democratic Movement Kenya have claimed that the party was ready to leave the opposition coalition CORD over the collapse of the memorandum of understanding between the principals Raila Odinga and Kalonzo Musyoka. The MPs, considered as rebels and largely seen as collaborating with the Jubilee coalition, have now hinted that it is only a matter of time before they formally join the ruling Jubilee coalition from the opposition CORD. KTN's political affairs reporter Chris Thairo has the details.
For the last 1 month, there have been reports in the political circles that Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka and his supporters were on their way out of the opposition alliance CORD, and especially after 2 meetings at State House attended by a delegation from Kitui, Machakos and Makueni counties, where they were offered goodies. And now 3 legislators affiliated to Wiper Party have come out to confirm that indeed they are about to bolt out of CORD.
Kasarani itakuwa kisirani. There is no way you can say Raila ataachia mtu. Ataachia na we have to get this.
We have said as a community we are going to chart a new political pathway. That is what we are saying. But not with ODM, with partners who have no respect for the community. Hatuna budi kuto support ama kuunga mkono ile serikali iliyoko.
According to the legislators, the writing is on the wall that the people of Lower Eastern region will never benefit if they stick with the opposition.
And he should not expect any support whatsoever from the region that he has shortchanged. I am telling ODM to forget about Lower Eastern, period.
I mean, the CORD belongs to ODM. Wiper, we are just there as flower girls. I do not want to be flower girls. This is simple as that.
President Uhuru Kenyatta is set to tour the Lower Eastern region and inspect projects initiated by the national government from the 19th to the 21st of this month, and the legislators state they will be ready to welcome him in the region.
Issue ati hawa sio wale wanafaa ku negotiate for kamba, sisi ndio sisi tunafaa. Nani aliwa appoint?
Tumeanza kuona ya kweli sisi ndio tulipoteza wakati. Tungelikuwa tumeingia kule mapema, wakati huu tungekuwa mbali sana.
However, despite Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka indicating that he is ready to welcome President Uhuru Kenyatta in Ukambani, he continues to insist that he is in CORD to stay and that they will stick together till the end.
Nauliza wenzetu ambao wako nyuma yetu wasijaribu kuvuta Kalonzo kando hii na Raila kando hile na Wetangula kando hile.
We will not sit down and continue watching ourselves being humiliated by ODM.
The opposition CORD is yet to settle on the mode that they will use to identify their presidential flag bearer ahead of the 2017 general elections. Chris Dairo, KTN News.
And the other question is Wiper's discomfort in CORD bringing discord in CORD? Well, away from politics, Standard One pupils in Mombasa are the first beneficiaries of the 3 laptops project that were promised by the Jubilee administration 3 years ago. The laptops were distributed to schools in Mombasa in the pilot project that many hope will help the children become e-compliant. Linda Obutu reports.
At Sparky Primary School in Kisauni, mini laptops are being charged. They are among the first batch to arrive in Mombasa County in fulfillment of a promise that was made 3 years ago. And after a few hours, each child in class 1 receives one of the laptops that many hope will help them become e-compliant. A hope that the teachers at the school have, and so they all gather around the pupils to help them make that initial step.
There is another science, there is English, social studies.
Yeah, we believe that the software that is installed in the laptops will be of great use to our children. We are still yet to see. It's an experimenting program that we want to see how best it can improve the pupils' learning.
It has been an unfulfilled promise that was enshrined in the Jubilee Manifesto, one that would see the Jubilee administration issue free laptops to Class 1 students all over the country. And 3 years down the line, that promise that has been clouded by controversy is now a reality. The first beneficiaries are pupils in Mombasa.
We remain focused and determined to deliver digital learning devices to our schools this year.
The signature pre-election pledge has been frustrated by procurement hiccups and protracted court battles that prompted President Uhuru Kenyatta to caution that the government would no longer do business with firms that undermine its projects to settle tender scores.
I know there are some teething problems, but as we go on, we'll know how to overcome them.
Treasury allocated 17.6 billion shillings in the current budget for the laptops, and it's just a matter of time before they are distributed all over the country in fulfillment of the pledge by the Jubilee administration. Linda Ogutu, KTN News.
Thank you for staying with us here on KTN Prime. Before we take another quick commercial break, let's take a look at the big question. We're asking you to send in your comments on what happened in Huruma when the court leaders visited the area. Prince Birir on Twitter says, how do you visit an ongoing rescue with that crowd? It does not make sense. And another one here from King Maida says, why tear gas me for visiting a tragedy site to offer assistance? That's the height of impunity. Last one here from Maureen Karanja says, I think court leaders should really know the right time to do their campaigns. Keep the SMSs, the texts, and the tweets coming. We're taking another quick commercial break, after which we'll be taking a look at the latest in business. Stay with us.
Welcome, many thanks for keeping it KTN Prime. Time to catch up with the latest from the business world. My name is Abi Agina. Kenya's economy grew marginally by 5.6% in 2015 compared to 5.3% growth in 2014. This slight expansion is being attributed to a significant growth in sectors like agriculture, construction, real estate, financial and insurance sectors. Philip Kitani has more.
Promises by the Jubilee administration in the last election that the country's economy will grow by double digits missed the mark as the 2016 economic survey released by the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics painted a contrary picture to that promise, with only the agricultural sector registering a 30% growth, followed by the manufacturing sector with 10.3%. Other sectors registering growth below 10%. KNBS placed Kenya's growth at 5.6% in 2015.
Tourism earnings also declined by 2.9% from Kenya shillings 87.1 billion to 84.6 billion over the same period.
Growth in the agricultural sector was attributed to improved weather conditions that significantly increased output of maize, horticultural produce, and livestock. The significance of crops that were favored by the weather far outweighed the crops negatively impacted upon by the bad weather, resulting in an impressive growth of 5.6%.
Again, we noted that the total earnings from crop sales increased by 15.5% to Kenya shillings 271.8 billion, and also that marketed crops continued to account for over 70% of the total marketed production in the year under review, that is 2015.
Other key macroeconomic indicators remained relatively stable during the reviewed period. Overall, inflation is from 6.9% in 2014 to 6.6% in 2015 due to low energy and transport prices. The current account deficit as the percentage of the GDP narrowed from 14.5% in 2015 to 11.4% in 2015. This was due to substantial growth in exports of goods and reduction in the importation bill. Philip Keitan, KTN Business.
Many thanks, Philip. Indeed, some good news there for Kenya's economy. Well, do you have a car or are you planning to buy a car? All motorists who are driving private and commercial vehicles that are 4 years older than the date of manufacture will have to be subjected to fresh inspection by the National Transport and Safety Authority before end of 2016. KTN's Joy Dorin-Bira has more.
In 2014, the government announced that all private cars would be subject to annual inspections beginning 2015, but that was not to happen as the National Transport Safety Authority (NTSA) admitted to being incapacitated to take on the exercise.
Currently, we have 17 inspection centers. And if we are expected to inspect more than 2 million vehicles, we don't have the capacity to do that.
Right.
And that is why we have not been inspecting from the time the law came into effect 2012.
The new rules that require all vehicles to have a certificate of inspection displayed on their windscreens will see owners of private cars part with between 2,600 and 3,900 shillings depending on the engine capacity. Motorcyclists will pay 1,300 shillings for the inspection and three-wheeler operators will pay 2,600 shillings.
The motorists, the motorcyclists as well have been saying that these rates are a bit on the higher side.
The rates which we have put there are the ones which were gazetted in 2011 to operate with the Minister of with the Mechanical and Transport Fund.
Yes.
If you look at the rates which are being charged in Britain, is 7,800 per vehicle.
Areas of interest for the inspection include shock absorbers, tires, headlights, battery life, indicators, brakes and seat belts among others. Used imported cars are subject to inspection every 2 years after landing, while newly purchased cars are subject to the same after 4 years. Commercial vehicles, however, going by the new rules are subject to inspection every year. NTSA says the inspection is necessary to eliminate vehicles with dangerous mechanical condition off the roads in the country. Joy Dorin-Bira, KTN News.
Let's see how that goes in the coming days. Gulf African Bank is set to cause a market upset in the banking sector after the Tier 3 lender announced plans to increase its branch network from 15 to 20 by close of the year. In an interview with the KTN Business, the bank's CEO Abdallah Abdul Kik says the market was ripe for growth despite the ongoing uncertainties in the banking industry.
Customer numbers, we have now exceeded 70,000 customers within the branches that we have, and we would like to double that number in the near future through this initiative of branch expansion. This year alone, we are putting aside over 100 million shillings for Kenyan expansion. And as I said, we are also looking to go beyond Kenya. But for this year alone, we have put aside more than 100 million shillings for just branch expansions. And we're also trying to increase our channels through through different ways of doing it, through agency banking. And also we have introduced mobile banking whereby we can now do branchless banking for our customers. But the plans are there and the money has already been put aside for those expansions.
Of course, do tune in tomorrow to catch that full interview with the Gulf Bank Managing Director on Captains of Industry on Wednesday. Well, moving on, Kenya is set to rationalize the duplication of licenses through a substantial ease of doing business survey that will benchmark counties on how they can facilitate their businesses. Despite the country ranking 108 in the ease of doing business survey 2015 from position 136 in 2014, Kenya has been facing the challenge of duplicity of tariffs. As a result, the Ministry of Industrialization will borrow a leaf from different methods applied by other countries to curb the challenge during the 3-day Ease of Doing Business Initiative conference.
with the coming on board of county governments in the last few years, there has been some challenges about new tariffs that are being introduced, which is becoming an issue for concern for businesses. But we are dealing with that. We have come up with model laws on lesser finance bills and also licensing and everything. So again, those are attempts to ensure that the counties are talking from the same script and are applying similar laws.
Having a national government and a county government implies devolved responsibilities, and those have to be handled quite sensitively. So we should be able to help with knowledge and examples of how this has been done elsewhere.
Well, and with that, that's how we wrap up KTN Business. My name is Abi Agina. Coming up next is the sports news.
Well, very good evening and a warm welcome to tonight's edition of KTN Sports. My name is Lynn Washira. We kick off the bulletin in matters of athletics, where the Kenya Prisons will hold their 2016 Athletics Championships this Friday and Saturday at the Nyayo National Stadium. The Prisons become the last discipline force to select a team to the National Championships. The Kenya Police, as well as the Defense Forces, have already selected their teams to the National Championships. Known for its prowess in the short races, the Prisons Department hopes to send a strong team to the National Championships and eventually to the National Olympic Trials next month. The Prisons Department athletes have been training at the Nyayo National Stadium ahead of the championships. And World Sports Kenya have partnered with Uasin Gishu County Government to give Kipchoge Keino Stadium in Eldoret a complete facelift before hosting the national trials for the Olympic Games and the 20th Africa Senior Athletics Championships next month. Last week, National Olympic Committee of Kenya (NOC) announced that Kipchoge Stadium will host the 3-day national trials on June 14th to 16th.
Our mandate is to ensure that we have sporting facilities and program in every county. We are going into partnership with the counties. We have started with Uasin Gishu, and we want this to be a model in all counties.
As a county, we welcome this initiative and the partnership that we want to do to make sure that the Kipchoge Stadium becomes a world-class stadium, and also not just a world-class stadium in terms of infrastructure, but we also want to make it the busiest stadium in terms of activity in the country.
No longer, because I bought Mortin Doom Power Guard, which kills 100% mosquitoes. Mortin Doom Power Guard kills 100% mosquitoes.
So the fifth day of the rescue operations at the Huruma collapse building site today were characterized by running battles between CORD supporters and the police, where tear gas was used. On the big question tonight, we did ask you, what was your take on the scenes today? Very quickly, Paul Murage says touring a tragedy zone with supporters can only hamper efforts to save lives. Ken Leshan Sankale says we should all have a freedom to visit where we want, provided we avoid meetings promoting insults. Vincent K says, I don't get the message government is sending by throwing tear gas to Raila Odinga wherever he goes. Patrick Chege says, you don't appear at such a scene with chaotic crowds. Tear gas was in order. And Rose on Twitter says, tear gassing Raila was uncalled for. Isn't he like any other Kenyan who has freedom of movement? And Cyrus Moniki says, President Uhuru did visit the site and the operation was not interfered with. Why did Raila go there with goons? And Pope Francis Muchugi says, the chaos was uncalled for. Since when did CORD going to Huruma become unconstitutional? Many texts and tweets. That's all we have time for. Many thanks for participating in our big question discussion and for joining us on your most qualified news bulletin in town, KTN Prime. After this on KTN News, that is on DSTV channel 274 and GoTV channel 94 and Zuku channel 14, is Yvonne Okwara with the last word. Today is World Press Freedom Day. That is the topic of the day. Stand by her guest, Henry Maina of Article 19 East Africa, as well as veteran journalist Hassan Kulundu and John Alan Namu, co-founder of Africa Uncensored. You do not want to miss that conversation. Thanks for watching. I'm Ben Kitili. Good night from the KTN News Center.